Hello, everyone. I welcome you all on our first meetup, which we organized together with Dnipro VC. My name is Dmitros Podrets. I'm the founder of Data Phoenix. And today it's something I can say experiment, and we tried to launch new series of meetups where we can speak about AI, where we can share our knowledge, and where we can see AI in real world and how it's work without any presentation, only a real demo. So today we will have one panel discussion. We will have several demos. And also we will have open mic where you can say something about yourself and also try to find people who, with whom you can do good networking today. I want to give mic to Nick Bilogorsky, who is one of the co-founder of Dnipro VC, and he will introduce who will be on panel discussion.
Thank you, Dima. Hi, and thank you for being here. This microphone doesn't make me louder. This is just for the camera. I know it's kind of funny. So I appreciate you being here today to learn a little bit more about AI and speak with us, speak with each other, network with each other. My name is Nick. I'm here with Mariana. We're both co-founders and managing partners of Dnipro VC, an early-stage venture capital fund that empowers global founders in the areas of AI and cybersecurity. We believe in the potential of Ukrainian founders. I want to say thank you for Star for hosting us today. Star is a consultancy and a global service provider that is founded in Silicon Valley in 2008 and provides innovative products and services to companies all over the world, has over 500 million users and customers. So we're really thankful for the space. And Mariana can take over.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Oh, yeah, you're right. It doesn't do anything. Okay. I would like to introduce our guest, Dima, Dmytro Julgakov, who is the founder and CTO of Fireworks AI. Prior to starting Fireworks AI, Dima was a TL and core maintainer of Porch, right?
PyTorch, yeah.
PyTorch, and you help to scale PyTorch for industry access.
Yeah.
And before that, he was working on ranking and ranking system, correct? Well, big applause to you. You're actually the second silver medalist of International Olympiad for Informatics.
Yep.
Applause for that.
Yep. That was before like LLMs were able to beat me, but
Yes,
yeah. Now we are about at the same level.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Dima, it's been more than 10 years, maybe 15 years when you and I worked together at Facebook. And there was a handful of us Ukrainians there at the time with Ostap Karkuna and others. There's quite a few folks who came to Facebook through participating in coding competitions or winning competitions. But please tell us a little bit about Fireworks AI, what it is and what progress have you made since the last round that made the news that was backed by Sequoia and NVIDIA and I think valued you at $500 million.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me here, and yeah, thanks for reminding about fun times at Facebook. I think, like, for context, I think, like, I met you when I was like an intern, like 15 years ago or something. And I was like living at Ostap's, in Ostap's living room or something. No, it was 10 or 11, 2011 or 2010. So that's long way. But yeah, kind of fast forwarding through the whole like Fireworks kind of Facebook and PyTorch days. I mean, basically what we do is Fireworks is building the best place to develop with open source AI models. So, I mean, you probably, folks here probably know about like kind of open source AI, and we're hopefully gonna talk about more about it today. Stuff like DeepSeek made a lot of news, you know, Llama models from Meta and a lot of others. And we are basically like the best place to serve and develop with this type of models, which means that you can fine-tune, you can customize your type of deployment, and you can kind of scale up deployments to real large scale. So we work with individual developers, but we also work with big enterprises. So companies like Uber or DoorDash use us, and up and coming startups. I guess the most hot one is Cursors from our customers, which probably a lot of folks use there. So when you do tab and Cursor, it hits some of our infrastructure. So yeah, that's been pretty crazy ride, because the whole like Gen AI movement I've been doing like deep learning kind of infrastructure for AI for a while because of PyTorch, but in the past 2.5 years, the whole like, kind of foundational models, what people call Gen AI, exploded a lot, and it's been pretty crazy to see what people can build with that. In particular, it was exciting. There is like a huge kind of movement around open source models, and I guess everybody heard about DeepSeek in the past 2 months, right? So it's kind of made a lot of news, but basically, yeah, a gap between open source and closed source models is closing, and yeah, there is a lot of exciting stuff you can build on top of it, basically helping all these developers and companies to kind of with infrastructure and platform needs to build exciting applications with that.
Let's dive deep on this. So in today's landscape, many pre-trained models seem to be covering needs of many enterprises without extensive fine-tuning, right? So, but to leverage them to the fullest potential, you still need AI experts, which creates a bit of a bottleneck for wide AI adoption. I would be curious to know how Fireworks AI, like how do you guys address this challenge? And if there are any strategies that you deploy on making these LLMs more widely adaptable, even for smaller use cases?
Yeah, so I mean, I would, like in terms of kind of models, I would say that like, there is like GPT, GPT or Claude or whatever, which are kind of jack of all trades. They're great to kind of answering any question or a little bit specializing for any task. And a lot of people use this, and actually when you prototype your application, my advice is like, yeah, just use GPT API, that's great. When you kind of go to production where you're trying to build actual product, there are multiple reasons why you kind of end up customizing. One of them is cost, is because if you application, just paying for OpenAI API or something ends up being pretty expensive, and you often want to have like more efficient or smaller model. Second is customization, fine-tuning. The thing is like you can get only that far by asking ChatGPT nicely to kind of behave for your product. Prompt engineering is powerful, and you can like offer it tips and threaten to do something bad if it doesn't comply. But still, it's pretty crude tool of control. And we've seen that more like as kind of businesses become more advanced, they often have like data or like of actual customer interactions, or they have like very precise kind of requirements of how they want to frame kind of behavior of the models in their products. And for those needs, it's usually like fine-tuning or reinforcement learning is like a better technical means of achieving that. So think of like prompt engineering, asking GPT as a kind of crude tool to start prototyping, and that's usually what you want to start with. And but then as you get actual feedback from your product, as you get more like precise requirements, you can kind of often customizing is better, and you can get to better quality, often with smaller model. So you improve your quality and improve your cost at the same time. And yeah, I would say that like maybe like more than half probably of our customers like kind of end up basically fine-tuning this kind of as they go along. And even if I would say like this space of foundational models changes a lot, but like yeah, even if you just look from perspective like, okay, I want to use off-the-shelf model, I don't want to fine-tune, like DeepSeek, for example, why everybody's so excited is because, yeah, it's actually on frontier level of the overall model capabilities, and yeah, while being like multiple times cheaper. So we see actually a lot of people just using it for even as is to power different products or do like lightweight fine-tuning.
I love all stories. So tell me how it got started.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like I spent like my last 5 years at Meta, basically working on AI platform, but effectively PyTorch. So for folks who are not in AI, PyTorch is like the most popular framework for like building kind of deep learning, like training neural networks, basically. And so yeah, I was one of the core maintainers. Like took it from almost very beginning to kind of productionization and scaling. And through that journey, it was an open source project, but obviously supported by Meta. So we actually worked with many kind of companies and external organizations to kind of help them adopt and kind of co-develop for their needs. So that was kind of like very interesting experience of kind of mini startup as an open source project, right? While still backed by Meta, so we even had like small go-to-market team and kind of partner.
And why was Meta doing this? What was the benefit for Meta to invest resources?
Meta is actually very strategic about generally betting like open source and AI, and I think it's pretty smart. There are like multiple reasons for that, and we actually wrote a lot of documents internally like arguing for this. But fundamentally, it's like it's a recruiting tool. It's a lot kind of makes your kind of technical stack aligned with what the state of industry is, right? Like if you, now everybody is using PyTorch. If you wind back like 6-7 years ago, there was this whole like framework wars between like PyTorch and TensorFlow and Caffe and CNTK and whatever. Like, yeah. Now even Google is using PyTorch internally in a lot of teams. You just have like its benefits to have like a technology which the kind of industry uses, just from like hiring people or external contributions or hardware vendors optimizing for it, etc. And just general like thought leadership, which is kind of harder to quantify. And that's a similar story with like Llama and kind of open source like now on the next level of the stack with foundation models, like why Facebook open source Llama, right? Because it kind of benefits overall industry. It kind of creates community and ecosystem centered around them. That kind of helps to optimize all possible future hardware vendors and future kind of players in the ecosystem. Basically, look at Llama. Oh, it's open source. I'm gonna specialize for this and like you kind of use that both on software ecosystem and hardware ecosystem. It obviously helps with branding, and it's like doesn't directly hurt like business model of Facebook. So it kind of makes it commoditize the dependencies, which is kind of good if your business model is not based on that, which is kind of interesting.
Meta makes so much money on advertising, they can afford to not make money on AI. Exactly. And just give it away.
But coming back to origin story, because we kind of diverged a little bit. So we've been through this journey through kind of at Meta, and when I say we have like multiple co-founders, and like they were a lot of them were kind of from PyTorch team, like adjacent teams. So we kind of worked through the journey of helping businesses adopt deep learning and AI, and it was pretty obvious that there is big gap between what product engineers can do and what like technology can do, and but where the gap in tooling, the gap in know-how. So it was clear that there is business opportunity to address there, and it kind of makes sense to do it as a startup. So that was kind of the origin story. That roughly coincided with foundational model wave coming along, right? Which is like ChatGPT being released and stuff like that. That's why like we primarily now focus on kind of more on foundational models, like serving fine-tuning, etc. Basically like what's called Gen AI right now. But I think the origin story is kind of contiguous from like helping developers and businesses to like adopt deep learning AI, and basically building like platform infrastructure to making that easier.
That's so interesting to learn how the company starts. But I would like to think for the future what it holds for Fireworks AI. So you mentioned Gen AI is evolving so rapidly. So my question is, how does Firework AI ensures to be staying, adaptable and flexible to newer models and technologies? How do you ensure that?
By moving really fast. It is pretty crazy stuff because there is new models and new stuff being dropping every day. So it is intense. I guess from execution perspective, we try to stay nimble and like execute quickly and focus and prioritize and always be on the cutting edge of models. We pride ourselves that for many model releases we are like among the first ones to support them. From technical side, it basically means that our internal stack we intentionally design it for flexibility along the way, and again being kind of in the space for almost a decade helps a lot because we kind of know how to do this well. But the idea is that I think the evolution will continue architecture-wise, and we kind of try to architect our software stack to, if new models and new technologies and new approaches drop, it's easier to integrate and serve it quickly.
Well, spot on. Speed is everything in Gen AI.
Yeah, generally, I think it's true about startups overall, right? It's basically why startups can even compete with big organizations. It's primarily execution speed, right, and focus, which is I think true in general.
I want to talk a little bit about Ukraine. I believe you're from Kharkiv.
Yeah.
Same as me. We're from the same hometown. How did your Ukrainian background, your master's degree from Kharkiv, your experience in competitive programming, help you succeed? And what do you think is unique about Ukrainian tech founders?
On the spot, yeah. I mean, I can talk about like personal experience. I mean, I was doing a lot of like programming competitions and like IOI, ACM, all that kind of stuff. So that was very helpful to get into kind of tech, like
Gets you
Silicon Valley tech
noticed,
scene.
right?
Huh?
Differentiates you, gets you
It
noticed.
basically differentiates you, right? I mean, you talked about Ostap, right? Like
Yeah.
it was kind of same story, and I think like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad for Ukraine, but I think like, I like say from IOI team, which I went to like stuff like 3 out of 4 were like in Silicon Valley a few years later, which is, I mean, kind of mixed feelings, but yeah, it's kind but yeah, I think like generally like programming competitions are fun and it's like a good way to both differentiate, especially if you're not from top school. I mean, I guess like for the past 20 years they were like a very nice way. Right now it's interesting because LLMs are getting as good at competitive programming as the top performance, so it might go away like go the way of like online poker or whatever, where you have to like prove that you are not using some some additional helpers. But like it's good because like it trains you to kind of solve problems quickly and iterate quickly. I mean, from Ukrainian perspective, I think yeah, Ukraine generally has very good like technical education, and also yeah, people seen a lot of shit, so it helps in various stuff, which basically helps you to deal with a lot of
They develop lots of flexible mindset
yeah,
growing up in
flexible mindset,
Ukraine.
a lot of stuff. So that's, I mean, which coincidentally overlaps a lot with like what is needed to be founder,
That's so true.
which is pardon my English, but yeah.
I would like to take you a little bit back to general trends in AI. So, like, there is a lot of buzz in the market talking about like huge models, like do all models, with huge, massive parameters that run on massive GPUs and consume tons of energy. Yet DeepSeek showed us that we can actually run decent models on a MacBook, right? So, who do you think is going to be market winner?
I think it will be both in some sense, right? You're always gonna have like frontier capabilities, right? Where like scaling can take multiple forms. Like I think like the big, the previous wave of scaling was like, oh, we'll just train bigger models with more parameters and more data. That's I think like consensus now. That's kind of running out of steam because we're both like run out of data and more or less, and also like. Yeah, at some point it becomes just too impractical to build gigawatt data centers, though a few companies still try. I think luckily there are other ways of scaling. I mean, like scaling kind of inference time compute is the way. Like that's where the whole like way of reasoning models come in, where before giving you an answer, you kind of think a little bit and do a little bit of deliberation before giving you the answer, which is like a way of converting compute in those GPUs into higher quality answers, but now not through training models, but like by just thinking longer to answer every query. And I think like I think general trends is like more compute equals more intelligence. I think that's kind of the AI bitter lesson. Like I think Rich Sutton coined this term, like with one of the veterans in the AI field. But basically, yeah, like if you use scalable algorithms and throw just more compute in, like stuff works. I think like as an industry, we just like discover different ways of throwing more compute, and like even if like pre-training wave is kind of taping out, like yeah, the kind of reinforcement learning, like kind of teaching models to reason seems to be very promising and kind of it's still pretty early in the evolution, so there are like a lot of gains to be seen. And what it means in terms of differentiation of models, I think as you'll always have like kind of expensive jack of all trades kind of thing, right? Like which are really capable and kind of really trying to push AGI for all the problems. But then if you look at like business use cases, you often don't need like your customer service chatbot to know all the Pokemon, like 250 Pokemons or types, or or write you poems in medieval English. So you always have this like trade-off between kind of generality and performance on particular task, and yeah, just like economic forces kind of will. Like you'll always have both, and you'll have like the kind of specialization and kind of distillation, etc. So I think that trend will continue. So even even after our compute becomes 10 times cheaper, which it did, right? Like then, yeah, you'll just have like 10 times bigger models, and big models of today will become your medium models or something like this.
The startup I was doing in cybersecurity called Cyfort, our founder has moved on and building Gretel, which is a synthetic data startup. And I keep reading that we're about to run out of data, and you touched on this, right? These larger models are hungry. They'll eat up all of the data we have. Has it happened yet? When will it happen? What will happen when that comes to us? And what's the solution when we have no more data to train the models?
Yeah, so I mean, like several things which are happening here. So first, like just purely pre-training. Yeah, like you still probably have like one order of magnitude of data from like just like cleaning and filtering stuff on the internet, because what people do is like they basically just crawl the whole internet and try to like apply some simple rules to filter a subset of data to train on. Like you can do that better because you probably drop in a lot of stuff along the way. But when people talk about synthetic data, there are several kind of aspects to that, right? Like one is distillation, right? You can basically ask big models to generate you kind of data set of synthetic data, like generate different data sets on which you train smaller models.
Does it have value, that kind of data?
I mean, it does. I mean, what it particularly means is that you can also, because of like reasoning capabilities, right? You can basically ask, you can ask bigger models with reasoning to like synthesize you like really good data set for particular problem, right? You can basically ask like your biggest GPT-N or whatever to like think really hard and come up with like very diverse set of customer conversations, right? And then with particular support agent or something, and then use this like very high quality data set, which have taken a lot of effort to build by hand. Maybe curated with like some high level, tell GPT, oh, add more conversations like this, add more use cases like that, and then use this data set to train like a smaller model, which is more economical to run, etc. So I think there's a lot of trade-offs on kind of converting compute into like higher quality like data sets in some sense, and which we generally only like start to explore. And that's, I mean, that's generally like why more compute still equals higher intelligence. Yeah, so even though we're like maybe like close running out of just train on the whole internet, like after you train big model on the whole internet, you can then like pour more compute to kind of extract a very high quality like data sets, for example, conversations or mass reasoning traces or whatever, from that model for your particular task or like for particular use case, and use that for the train, which is kind of what's happening, what's exciting.
Well, these days when we talk about AI, we touched briefly on regulation, so I would maybe do it from a different angle. So if we talk about like wide-scale AI adoption, like what do you think are the biggest risks? Is it regulations, or is it like the power, and like do we consume too much energy, like something else maybe?
I know. I mean, I have kind of more like AI as a benevolent technology view. Like I think that like if you're talking about regulations, you need to like regulate not the models, but you need to regulate use cases and applications, right? Like if I mean, it's like a common argument, like, oh, if it's like electricity, right? Like if it's like generic technology like electricity, right? You can get electrocuted by by electric shock and or whatever, you can use it, but there's a lot of good applications, right? It's not the reason to ban electricity because you can get electrocuted. I think the same is true for AI generally, which is, yeah, that's why like I think open source is generally good, and kind of wide dissemination is better because you basically end up with overall community like figuring out like as technology evolves, like how to address like what are the bad behaviors and how to address them, maybe also with using AI, etc. So I personally have like pretty open view open view on this. And in terms of kind of attempts at regulation so far were not very successful, right? Because you kind of, I think like some regulation was passed like try to control models which used more than particular number of flops, like more than like floating point numbers and multiplications in training. Like if it's more than 10 to 26 power flops were used to train the model, then it's like called dangerous and needs to be like regulated and reported. And then a few months later, the DeepSeek itself, for example, you have similar capabilities in smaller models. Like what do you do with this kind of regulation? It just doesn't work. So yeah, I think generally like ensuring that it's actually more broadly dispersed, and there is like time as a society to like figure out what is the right way to address like bad use cases and potentially build defense tools, etc. Is the right way. It's really hard to put general technology in the in the bottle. Like once you figure out that something is possible, a lot of people figure out how to do this. So I don't think like you can like uninvent things. Then the best strategy is basically like make sure that people who are kind of incentivized and want to build defensive tools have access to the same technology, and not just try to like limit and constrain it.
Well, this is a great take on this. I recall when I was on Wall Street during financial crisis, so the problem was the credit default swap. Well, that's not instrument that creates a problem. That's, as you say, in the case of AI, it's the use case, right, that needs to be regulated. I think we are almost approaching the end of our...
Yeah, we love to keep these interactive, so we want the audience to participate. So start thinking of a question if you want to ask one. But before we turn over to that, do you have any questions for us?
I guess not at the spot, but
great.
Or
someone has questions.
Yeah, I don't know, or maybe like which Ukrainian founders' investments you're most excited about, or what is maybe like one company which you're really excited about?
Ooh, there are so many. There are so many. I mean, we are very excited of partnering with a company called Rivalia Bio. They're working on something very impactful. This company the technology comes of Yale, and they revive the organs for up to 5 days, and they test drugs on these organs, pharmaceuticals, right? So it definitely helps the research and helps to advance development of the drugs. So I'm very, very proud for this company that we partnered with. Everything in healthcare seems to be very exciting. It has very strong defensibility modes around data. So we have founders here as well from our healthcare portfolio companies. Nick, yours?
We haven't invested in this one yet, but I think the founders are here. I'm interested in IP property rights for large companies on AI-generated imagery and content. So I look forward to seeing their demo. And I love the AI applications in the healthcare space.
Yeah, that's...
Mikola?
Maybe we will take the microphone.
Sounds great. Please stand up and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mick. Question, what are the things that you believe maybe in AI that maybe not many others believe or goes contrary to other beliefs in the industry? It's a lot of buzz. What are the things that are contrarians?
Contrarian, okay.
Or somewhat, doesn't have to be
I don't
that
think like somewhat contrarian. I mean, like what we talked about regulation, I think, and like opening up. I mean, it's not very contrarian, but it's like against. I mean, it goes against, I guess, what people try to, especially like bigger companies, try to advertise as a government policy. Yeah, hard to come up on the spot with something like very contrarian. I think. I mean, we talked about open source being generally winner in the long run, but I don't think it's very contrarian. A lot of people have this belief. I guess my answer is that the space, like the opinion space, is widely distributed, so it's hard to be out of distribution.
With AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you say in the mic because we do recording.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So with AI, kind of reducing the number of like time and effort to build things, right? And there's so many competitions around AI. Now it kind of shift into distribution and also be able to sell, right? What for everyone in the panel, maybe help us, illuminate the audience on like, what do you think will work better in terms of selling AI to current, enterprise or small, medium businesses, and what have you seen, would not work anymore? Does that kind of make sense?
The question was, what would work better on selling AI to big corporates and what wouldn't work anymore? I don't think there's any problem selling it to AI. I think from the stats I'm seeing that, 70, 80% of AI of corporations are already adopting AI or in various process of adopting it. I think the value of it is quite clear, and it's there. Some of them are held back by the security of it, but I'm not in the game of selling AI to corporates, so I'm not the best person to answer this question. But I question the premise of, is it really a problem?
I would just I agree with Nick on his statement, but I don't see that being such a big problem for big enterprises that have enough AI experts to integrate the models, right? So this is more of a question for mid-sized companies that do not have those experts on their teams. So I think the difficulty is, and that was one of the questions we discussed. Exactly. To this point, like frameworks of Fireworks AI, can this help to adopt these models in a mid-sized enterprise that do not have AI experts on the team?
I think maybe another part of your question was like, if it's easy to build software, right? Like, what does it mean to startups overall, right? Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think the claims about like software being fully automated is still exaggerated, right? So I think what's like it does help you to move 10x faster if you know what you want to do. And that's actually good for startups, right? Because if you have some conviction and idea, you can like prototype and implement it really quickly. But still, like a lot of complex problems. I mean, right now, yeah, you don't have like yet the single person founder of like billion-dollar companies. So there are still. I mean, it will come, but not yet. But yeah, if anything, like I think what gets automated is implementation and like gnarly details where you need to you had to hire a lot of coding. Like a lot of coders to implement something, which means like comparatively what makes more value is like idea and product and actually understanding what customers need. So if anything, it just for startup ecosystem, it just I guess like increases iteration rate, right? Increases learning rate, right? So you'll see smaller teams iterating faster and finding like product market fit. It makes it harder for like if your product is just like a bunch of not very complicated software, which took a long time to build, like that will get more commoditized. So it needs to be based on like either unique product, inside, or existing distribution, or like some unique data advantage, etc. But I think that on the other hand, like all the advice for startups was always like build something people want. Is not like implementation is not the biggest modern biggest stuff. So it just makes it even more true, and allows maybe like smaller teams to kind of follow this gospel.
But to be a devil's advocate, if I were to say that students today don't need to learn computer science anymore at all because LLMs will code better than them, would you disagree with that, and why?
I would strongly disagree with this, right? I mean, it's basically, I mean, a few examples. Like one of the arguments, like, oh, you don't need to like understand how computers work because you'll be using higher level programming languages before. I mean, like, yeah, it gets you some far, but like you need to still build mental models. Like the analogy would be like, yeah, you probably will not end up coding that much day to day on like boring tasks, right? So you would shift you're shifting your time more on like kind of tech leading architecture kind of sense, or like more like PM kind of direction. But it's like if something goes wrong, you still want to like have enough mental model to figure out what's going on, right? Basically, if AI is your coder, right, you don't want to be in a situation like, and you are trying to build tech first company, you don't want to be in a situation of like being like non-technical founder who has like engineering like IT team, and they tell them something like with no idea what those guys are talking about. If something goes wrong, like I have no idea how to debug, right? You don't want to be in that situation, but instead of hiring a lot of like mindless coders, you can like try multiple ideas with fewer people. I think that's the leverage. Like reformulating this, if AI is like vibe coding, like what do you do when vibes are off, right? And like how do you debug it?
For those who don't know, can you define what vibe coding is?
Vibe coding. I think it was like coined on Twitter. I think by Karpati. I don't know, maybe maybe somebody else. But yeah, the idea is like when you're like trying to build something using current like AI assisted tools like Cursor, and basically instead of actually looking at the code, you just like prompt the LLM and like look at the results, like, oh, it looks good, and like doesn't look good. Okay, like go fix. Like if something doesn't work, you just tell it like go fix it and repeat it until it kind of works. So you code based on vibes, not actually reading the code itself.
Thank you. Next question was.
Yeah, I have a question to Dima. So, Dima, you said you are an... Yeah. Hello, my name is Andriy, and I have a question to Dima. So you said you are an AI believer, right? So what makes you be so optimistic about that?
I don't know. I mean, like it just. I mean, like you just repeatedly see that like on many tasks it works in practice, right? And like rate of I mean, there are all these charts of like rate of improvement, etc.
Yeah.
What do you mean by believer? Like,
But you also said that regulations are not
Oh.
ready, right? And the risk is high, right? And for example, the latest version of Grok didn't have alignment at all, and everyone could get a recipe of chemical weapon, for example, right? Before they fixed it. So from this standpoint,
Oh, from a
impact
safety.
impact is going to be tremendous. Sorry?
Did they fix it?
Yes, they fixed it a few hours later,
Yeah.
but some people could get some interesting information. So from this standpoint, the risk is going to be so high that
I mean,
like
I honestly like don't buy like it can tell me how to build like atomic bomb or nuclear or like whatever chemical weapons kind of argument, because like if you actually have like intent to build chemical weapons, like you will find this information, right?
yeah,
Like,
but it's going to be easier now.
yeah, but I don't think like access to information was like a bottleneck even before to that extent. Like what I'm more worried about is actually like bots on social media is like very practical problem, right? Like, and because they're actually like cost of hiring, farms in some countries to do, like to post comments on every post. Like that was actually like that labor was a bottleneck, and now it's driving down. And that's actually like much more practical risk for all this like, this disperse of like regulated knowledge. Like, I mean, in the end, like that Grok was trained on the whole internet. Like you probably can. I mean, I didn't try, but like you probably can use Google or Brave or whatever other search engine to find the same information if you wanted to. So I think that one is overblown. I think what is real is like, like kind of like tasks where like bad actor tasks where like not very intellectual human labor was, so which is like all the kind of scamming and spam and etc. I think that's real, but that's something which was the case. Like we had previous waves of this, with social networks and etc. Like kind of all the integrity work. Like you can use the same technology to alter that, or you can use identity verification, all the kind of approaches. I think that's real. Some economic displacement is real, but again, like I think that's been happening with other technology waves, and I think society will adopt, even though there would be some shuffling along the way. But on the other hand, if there is a lot of jobs which are just manual, like not very intellectual work, like that's maybe good that they're automated and you can focus on more like interesting things.
Might create more jobs than it replaces.
Yeah.
Or close to it.
I mean, like it's the same thing. Like there were like tons of, calculator was a job title back in like 40s and 50s, right? And you would have like this usually ladies sitting in the basement because they're like more meticulous or whatever. But you would have like in 40s like the whole room's like sitting like doing calculations by hand, right? Like all of those jobs were automated, but we still have much more like white collar work or whatever, and like there would be like maybe more service jobs or whatnot. But I think
That will be the last question.
Yeah. Okay. Hi guys. Nikhil, this side. So I have two questions. So what?
sneaky.
Yeah. So.
yeah.
So, like, what is the top enterprise use case are you seeing currently, other than knowledge base, retrieval and whatever? And the other is, so I'm a startup founder. So how can we like effective way of, your, suggestion that how do we get, foot in the door in big enterprises?
How do we get what? Sorry?
How do we sell effective way of selling to big
Oh,
enterprises?
selling. I see. Okay. I mean, for use cases, I mean, definitely coding is like a huge use case in various forms, right? It can be like general purpose coding use cases, or it can be like specialized. A lot of software products have like some kind of DSLs or languages or whatever, right? Like so kind of text to SQL or like whatever kind of assistance. I think like generally like kind of copilots and coding is like one use case of that. Is big bucket, like kind of customer support or like agents in general. It's not. I mean, like it varies just from adoption because there is kind of higher risks, higher tail risks. So a lot of people are doing this, but maybe it's haven't hit mainstream that much yet. Yeah, and what you mentioned about the crazy, like, yeah, augmented search and kind of like retrieval and kind of like creative writing. Yeah, I think like creative writing generally doesn't need that much specialization. It's just general models work. Kind of like augmenting this with retrieval and context is like another kind of big bucket of what people are doing. So I think those are, I mean, kind of pretty obvious buckets. I mean, in terms of selling, I mean, it depends. Are you talking about like more like B2B sales? Yeah, I mean, like find some use cases which are, I mean, we are approaching this more from platform perspective, right? But I think generally, like, yeah, find some use cases which, you know, those folks have, right? And like show how you can make them 10x better. And yeah, like B2B sales are hard. You need to kind of talk to a lot of people and find your right like co-design partner and somebody who is actually excited like to do first iterations, and then it gets, I mean, then you can scale from there. But yeah, like find some like team or some pocket somewhere in the company which have this problem, right? And who would be like really excited to partner with you to kind of co-build solution. And that's kind of initial co-design proof of concept is very valuable because that allows you to like go and sell it after that to other companies. I mean, that's like general B2B playbook. I think it applies to kind of AI use cases as well. Or, I mean, there are also examples of like doing like, I mean, we talked about Cursor, right? There's like more like product-led growth too, kind of more coming from developers, etc. So I think like the playbook still applies, just like you can scale them faster if you wanted to.
Yeah. Hi, my name's John. Thank you for organizing and coming to share your thoughts. First, my question for all three is, what are your thoughts on MCPs and how can startups take advantage of them, and any MCPs that you're excited about?
And for context, MCP is model. Yeah, you guys have context? No? Model. You're talking about model context protocol, right? Yeah. There's like a way which Anthropic released for like extending functionality of Claude, so kind of exposing external tools to the like for LLM to call. I think it's a nice interface. It got a little bit overhyped on Twitter, in my personal opinion, over the past like months. I think they're like, I mean, it's basically like a nicer interface to tool calling in some sense, which is, yeah, it's more convenient to build and it has like nice SDKs in all the languages, etc. I think it's fundamentally still like needs your LLMs to be very good at tool calling. Claude is pretty good, and we also, I mean, coming back to like specialization in specialization stuff. Like I think we've seen like very good results in kind of using reinforcement learning to like improve kind of tool calling capability. And for those who like not in general, like what I mean tool calling, what I mean by tool calling tool use is basically if you ask LLM to do something, it's like a way to teaching it like use external tools, so like go call some API to solve the task, right? So you can ask it about, I don't know, what are like analyze me like top companies on market, and it will like go ask some stock exchange for current stock prices, and then go maybe like fetch some documents about every company or earnings reports or something. So like, yeah, I think like basically we like iterate, like as an industry, like iteration is the best way to like train models to generically use the tools, and like having a convenient way of exposing tools to the models. Like MCP is a good way to like exposing like nice interface. But yeah, I know it like got, in my opinion, too viral on Twitter. Like tool use was there before, and it's kind of nice that they're creating an ecosystem, but it's not like as fundamentally game changing. But I mean, in terms of which particular MCP usage, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like again, like I think there's like more more hype. I mean, like integrations which actually exist is more like using like Claude desktop app and connecting it to different tools, which is convenient, but it's more like a functionality of particular tool. I've seen like good demos of like people connecting like Figma to for like you know, connect it to LM, so like you can like you know, like ask LM to like prototype something and like goes into Figma. So like that one seems to be working well. There are a lot of like hyped demos which don't really work.
All right, guys, our time is up. Dima, thank you so much for your insights, for sticking around here, being so generous with your time. We know how busy you are and how things are moving fast in your industry.
Yeah, there's probably a model dropped in the past hour.
No. That's right. And thank you so much to audience for sticking around and asking all these great questions. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And